Hello and welcome to Romance Book Club. Today I'll be talking about the book The Unexpected Consequences of Love by Jill Mansell. In this book, I believe it's set in Cornwall, England, and it comprises of 4 characters. Well, there's a lot, but 4 main ones that end up getting into a relationship with each other. So there's Riley, Tula, Sophie and Josh, and they're all in their early 30s, I would say. And start off with Sophie. So with Sophie, I believe she's about 30 years old or late 20s, and she was once married, very young age, due to a mother-in-law that really wanted her and her son to get together and all that. So pretty much that ends up being a really messed up marriage due to the attachment her husband has with his mother, and with the loss of his mum, he sort of loses it a bit, and hence the decline of the marriage. So it leaves her scarred, however, and she vows not to ever get close to anybody so that she won't have to go through that sort of pain ever again. So she meets a guy, Josh, and he obviously, like a romance book, falls in love with her, but obviously she can't allow herself to be with this man. So that's a bit of a complicated relationship going on there. A non-existing one, in fact, because they never actually date, but he's very much attracted to her and wants to be with her, so therefore the romance begins. There's Riley and Tula that end up together, but Riley has a reputation of being a playboy and a bit of a bum. And it turns out he's not such a bum after all, and there's a bit of a tricky thing happening there. I will say, eventually I believe his aunt, yes, his parents dies and his aunt takes full custody of him, and he ends up having to help his aunt in a very big way. She's a writer and she gets severe writer's block where she could never write again. And when I heard that part, I was like, oh God, that is horrible. I would never want to go through anything like that where I couldn't write again, or just where you just wake up and what you love doing, you just can't do it anymore, and you've got a whole bunch of people waiting for your work or whatever the case may be. And I just thought, God, that's absolutely horrible. And it was very sweet of him to take charge and help his aunt in the way that he did. What else? So there's Tula, who's had a string of just bad relationships. She's like the endless dreamer of love and everything, and she's always going to try, and she just absolutely loves trying to get into relationships. And it was really unexpected, obviously, but she ends up really loving Riley. He knew right away that he loved her, but it took her some convincing with his work ethic. That was a big thing for her due to her father not able to commit, and her mom always ending up with men that could not commit to anything. So that was a big problem. And so with Sophie, she's a great photographer. She takes pictures of different things, events, weddings, whatever. She's really had to come up about it. And the other characters are Dot and Lawrence, who are Josh's grandparents, and their own history is they were together for 40 years, and one day Lawrence meets this other woman and ends up falling in love with her, and after 40 years of marriage he decides, I'm in love with this woman. So out of nowhere, he tells his wife the whole truth and everything, and they end up splitting. He ends up being with this woman. But the twist is, she ends up dying 7 weeks later. Which is horrible, but at the same time, the whole situation was just horrible, because I just can't imagine 40 years of marriage and then, you're just going to fall in love with somebody else all of a sudden after 40 years, okay, and you just couldn't help yourself. That is horrible. That is just absolutely horrible. I suppose that's where it goes with unexpected consequences, because he fell in love, but then he ended up losing that love. But either way, he was really happy for those first few weeks they had together before the lady he ended up with got sick. So I will say I thought that was just horrible. But fact is, he ends up getting back with his ex-wife after 10 years. Obviously, he was devastated about what happened, but my issue with that, great book, great, and I know it happens, my issue with that is, God, 40 years and you're just going to throw it all away. And I know if you're in a bad marriage, but the thing was, they weren't in a bad marriage. He very much loved his wife, but he just couldn't help himself, his attraction to this woman. And for me, the fact that she was still in love with him, obviously it's understandable. They spent so many years together. But at the same time, for her to take him back out, that was a really tough one for me to sit with, the decision. Because it's like, wow, what if she didn't die? What if that other woman did not die? He very much intended on spending his life with that woman. So why would I take him back? But like I said, things happen and people still love each other, and she did die, and 10 years later they end up together again, and they realize they are very much still in love with each other regardless of all the other things that happened. So that was a bit of a tough one, but this book, I liked it. I did like it. There were some parts I was like, oh my God. So there was a point where Tulu's got these like really like awful friends, and I don't even think you can call them friends. I mean, they were really mean to her, and she knew it, but it was all, I guess it's one of those types of friendship where you got to kind of show that you've got everything together, which I wouldn't consider a friendship if you have to pretend, fake with the person so that they don't make fun of you for it. They're not really your friends, if that's the case. There was an incident, she comes up with this extravagant lie, and she has this partner, Riley, that comes with her, and he's some sort of genetic or something, like researcher or something like that. And it all blows up in your face basically at a wedding, and his playboy reputation sort of catches up with him in that place. So I thought that was really awful, but it also let him look at himself like, what does he really want with his life? But altogether, the romance for them really begins after that incident. They really, really start having that attraction to each other. And with Sophie, Josh is so committed to her that he really wants her to date him, for one, because he realizes he's in love with her, which is really cool because they never go out. No, nothing, no going out, no dating. He just fell in love with her. And if only things can happen like that. But he's really committed to getting her back out there, even for herself. Even if he does not end up with her, he realizes something in her past happened and it really messed with her, and yeah, it's got her all screwed up. So he ends up finding out what that is. He ends up finding her ex-husband and explains to him what the situation is, and the ex-husband feels absolutely horrible because he's gone on, after some therapy, of course, he's gone on to live his life to the fullest. He's married, has 2 children, and there she is, not dating. Because in her head, she always pictured the incident that happened with him as almost her fault, and that he's living this miserable life, or she caused him to live this miserable life, but in fact, he's actually living his life very happily. And when she realizes this, she realizes she has to let go of the past and fully commit herself to living again and being with somebody. And it's not always going to be perfect, but you have to be willing to risk getting hurt. And that's what love and romance is all about. It's not always perfect, and it's not always going to be perfect, but you have to be willing to take the risk for the love. So I really like this book. It was a good read. At first I was a bit off. I wasn't sure about it just yet, but I really liked it. It ended up being a really good book. I enjoyed it. What else? Overall, it just ended up being a really good book. And so, The Unexpected Consequences of Love by Jill Mansell. Check it out. Once again, make recommendations for books that you like, romance books, please. Like this video and please subscribe. Alright, take care.